another guy, a UFC guy, Cage Side, was like, if Sean loses that fight, whoever says he loses is getting fired. I don't think he was talking about the judges, but yeah. I'm like, damn.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're watching this from. Here on this channel, we talk about all things boxing, mixed martial arts, and also our feelings. And speaking of feelings, how do we all feel about a good old unsubstantiated conspiracy theory? Regardless of how you personally felt about Sean O'Malley versus Petr Yan at UFC 269, every independent MMA media outlet had it scored for Yan, which objectively signifies a robbery. And I've never seen that happen with any fight beforehand, regardless of how controversial a decision was, so this was a particularly bad one. And as always tends to happen with these things, all sorts of wild conspiracy theories began flying around the internet, with one particularly juicy one that claims that Sean O'Malley was already penciled in as the winner before the fight even happened. Now normally I would just dismiss something like that as way too implausible to actually happen, but there's a couple of factors about this specific fight that give me a little bit of pause and actually make this theory at least possible. First of all, the fight was only scheduled for 3 rounds, which is extremely weird because it was part of the main card and featured 2 big names. Petr Yan and especially Sean O'Malley are pretty popular within the UFC and outside of it. There's no reason at all why this fight should have been scheduled for 3 rounds other than them trying to give Sean O'Malley the best chance to win, knowing that Petr Yan is a notoriously late starter who thrives in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Yan is also Russian and represents his country proudly, which in this day and age is kind of bad for business, especially when you're the champion and by proxy the face of the division. It wouldn't exactly be shocking if the UFC didn't want him in that position. O'Malley, on the other hand, is all-American and also extremely marketable, with or without the UFC. You see him all around the internet, everywhere on YouTube. He's hanging out with the Nelk Boys, with Tekashi 6ix9ine, with Andrew Tate. He has his own podcast. He's killing it. In fact, alongside Khamzat Chimaev, he's one of only 2 potential future megastars currently on UFC's roster. Everybody else is slowly leaving the company. Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, John Jones, they're all out of commission. So if the UFC were to try to pull something like this off, now would be the time, and Abu Dhabi would be the place. And the reason for that is the fact that Abu Dhabi doesn't seem to have an actual athletic commission. So who is it exactly that appoints these judges? I'd be surprised but not completely bewildered to find out that the UFC is involved in that. And the thing that makes this theory even more plausible is the fact that Dana White mentioned Henry Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling in the post-fight press conference. Since when does Dana White care about Henry Cejudo and actually wants him back in the UFC? This almost feels like a last-ditch effort for the UFC to get rid of Aljamain Sterling as champion before O'Malley has a chance to face them, because due to his offensive wrestling, Aljamain Sterling is an absolutely atrocious matchup for Sean O'Malley. And if you need any confirmation for that, well, Aljamain Sterling himself has come out and said as much.
Like, you go on record, you say whoever wins this fight is clearly getting the #1 shot because it makes sense.
Right.
After the fight, everything completely changes, and then you throw Henry Cejudo in the mix. And I'm just completely confused because I'm just like, this guy hasn't fought in over 2 years. You don't want to give him a title shot to go be triple champ, which I'm not opposed to, because I think if anyone deserves it based on merit, it's him. And I'm not a hater by any means. But then the guy comes back after 2 years, fought at 125, fought, I think twice maybe at 35, and he's supposed to come back, get an immediate title shot after doing what? You know what I mean? So now it's like, I almost feel, and I could be completely wrong, I almost feel like they're looking for a last hope of someone who could take out Aljamain Sterling.
To just tie it all together, the full conspiracy theory goes as follows. Sean O'Malley is very popular and marketable, and UFC wants him as the champion. But Petr Yan is in the way. But Petr Yan is not marketable and he's also Russian. Therefore, the UFC set up the fight in Abu Dhabi where they could have more control over the judges. And they also made the fight 3 rounds to give Sean O'Malley a better chance to win due to the fact that Petr Yan is a notoriously slow starter. The UFC also wants to get Aljamain Sterling out the paint. That's why they're trying to set up a fight with him and Henry Cejudo so that Sean O'Malley fight Cejudo instead of Sterling, who's a bad matchup for him to win the title. I hope that was clear enough. I try to do my best without stumbling over too many words, but some things are simply unavoidable. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, dislike, it's good for the algorithm, and as always, I'll see you soon.